Yes guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Well, there's Bugsy Malone doing the things she loves to do. I hope you are too. Please smash the like button for me. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. This is my morning after match day review. Before we get to that, if you haven't already, then if you want to check out what the Luton experience is like, I did a match day vlog because it is unique. Luton Stadium is, you know, it's old school. It's not really the sort of typical thing you'd experience in the Premier League. And I was very fortunate, thanks to a really cool guy who subscribes to the channel. He doesn't wish to be named, but he knows who he is, who got me a ticket. I was one of the very few lucky ones. I think we had about 900 or so travelling fans there. So to be a part of that was incredible. The atmosphere was great. The stadium, like I say, watch the vlog, it's unique. There's so many like obstructed views. There was non-reserved seating, so you just went and stood wherever you could find the space. You know, proper old school stuff. And consequently, my kind of thoughts on the game are shaped by the fact that I was standing, you know, down by the corner flag, 5 feet above pitch level, which makes it difficult to see what was happening entirely down the other end of the pitch. And you know, that was where a lot of the action happened, if I'm honest, because Tottenham attacked that way in the first half, when Tottenham were at their best in the first 5 or 10 minutes, when we had, what was it, 95% possession. You know, most of our action, even though the goal was scored down our end in the second half, most of our action goal threat wise was down the other side, which was difficult to see with specifics. And then the second half, when Luton got hold of the game and were coming at us for the equaliser for the final 35 minutes, all of that also happened down the other end of the pitch. So, you know, please take with a pinch of salt my perspectives here. But what I would say generally is that I think it's one of those games where you as a Tottenham fan are allowed to have any particular opinion, because I think it's pretty easy to land, if you want to, you can land on an opinion where it's one of the better performances of the season because of certain specific metrics, like the resilience, the mindset, the doggedness, the fact that we went down to 10 men and still went up and carved out a goal and then protected it. You know, those are things to be applauded for, recognised and acknowledged. That, you know, not every day in the Premier League is going to be a free-flowing, incident-free, easy experience. Some of those games are going to be the games where you have to fight and claw with your fingernails to get something out of the game. And to be entirely honest, this version of Tottenham Hotspur can do that. The version of Tottenham Hotspur, in my opinion, last season or for the previous, well, several, would have lost that game 2-1 or 1-0. That Spursy thing would have happened, but we didn't. And I think so if you want to focus on the positives, then there's loads of positives to take. If, however, you want to focus on the negatives, then there is a lot of negatives to take as well. For me, despite the dominant possession in the first half, we could have been 3-0 up in the first 10 minutes and the game would have been put to bed. But we weren't, and it wasn't, because of two real things, really. Our finishing is, or has been, at least yesterday, but also I'm becoming slightly concerned with some of the players with regards to this, has been way off point. And it's a problem. It's a problem that eventually will catch up with you. You can't ride your luck all the time. If you don't take your opportunities, you will lose games against better teams. Manchester United could have taken their opportunities, didn't. We ended up beating them. Liverpool could have taken their opportunities, didn't. We could have ended up, or we did end up beating them, but through a different circumstance. Arsenal had opportunities, didn't take them. You don't want to become a team that needs 20 chances to score 2 goals. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but yesterday we were incredibly wasteful, as were Luton in the second half, if I'm honest. It appeared to me that Luton didn't know how to finish their dinner either. And so that's the problem. That's one of the negatives that The scoreline reflects the reality, but there could have been innumerate other realities that played out had certain players on both teams stood up when the opportunities arose. And people didn't, and we'll talk about them in a second. Second negative, I think, in the first half specifically was our weight of passing. It just wasn't good enough. We break into good opportunities, and then the final ball, the final through ball, all too often was just overhit, which is a frustration. Again, that's not finishing your dinner, that's more around finishing the creative side of it. And to me, I think those things are less impactful in the overall game, but they still are areas for improvement. Individually, we're going to go through my kind of player ratings, and I'll be entirely honest with you guys. Like, I've been asked to go on a show today, and the host has asked me to send over my player ratings. And last night I sent over about 5 different versions of player ratings because I couldn't land on how I really felt about certain players. For the same reasons, I think individually you can look at them and say, this guy didn't play well because of this, or this guy did play well because of that. And it depends on how you particularly want to perceive him. I'll give you an example. Dejan Kulusevski, I didn't think he had a great game once again. I don't like his predictability. His lack of pace slows us down a little bit. You know, and he could have scored a goal. It was a fantastic save from the Luton keeper that kept that out in the first half. And so I probably would have given him like a kind of 5 or a 6, 5.5. But then in the second half, when we went down to 10 men and when Maddison and Sonny came off, he was our only outlet, and he was a brilliant outlet to keep the ball, to get it up the top end of the pitch, to use his strength to protect and to gobble up time. And to me, the people that constantly criticise him, that have made up their mind about him, I don't think they're baking in the indirect value that he brings for things that other players in our forward line don't have. The same could be said for Richarlison, but for me, to a lesser extent. But I think you do need, and I think Ange has said as much, he wants a team so that he can play the same system, but through tweaking the personnel can have entirely different outcomes. And I think Kulusevski offers something that most of our forwards don't have. Similar to Perisic offers something that most of our forwards don't have. You know, other players like Manuel Solomon and Brennan Johnson, those guys are kind of more similar in as much as tricky speed, you know, merchants, that sort of stuff. But Kulusevski has something unique, which is his ability to hold the ball up and wait for players to join him. And I don't think that should be overstated or understated. I think it is what it is, but it should be recognised and acknowledged. And again, that second half performance from him, whilst not doing what his direct responsibility is, which is to create and score goals, notched him up. So depending on how highly you prioritise certain things in your analysis will depend on whether you think he was a 5 out of 10 performance or a 7 out of 10. And given the circumstances that we found ourselves in, I think I'm going to lean more towards the 7 for him doing the really important job of helping us to see the game out in the final 15-20 minutes when we were under the cosh. Let's go through it real quick for you guys. I don't want to be talking forever. Vicario did his job today, made some really great saves in the second half. Again, Luton could have and should have probably scored if they were more on point, but Vicario can only save what he's asked to save, and he did every single time. I love his communication, I love his passion, and I love his distribution skills are getting better and better. Solid 7. I don't think he was, from what I could see, you know, asked to do anything spectacular, but what he was asked to do, he did. Brilliant. Start with the centre-backs. For me, Romero and Van der Ven, one of the best partnerships forging in football. Everyone's giving the plaudits to Van der Ven, and rightly so, because not only did he score the goal, which was taken really well, but his confidence at bringing the ball out, running with it with, you know, ease. He's not just someone who's willing to do it, he's someone who's actually capable of doing it. And in doing that, he pulls players out of position, which leaves space for Maddison and Bissouma and Sarr, and it's a really, really important asset to have. Plus, every single time in that game and every single time this season that someone who is, a speedier, pacier player in the opposition has decided to try and take him on, Van de Ven has passed every single test. No one's beaten him for pace. His timing of his challenges and his strength is very, very high for someone so young. We've got an absolute monster on our hands. And I think I'd have to give him... I think I am going to give him an 8.5 if we're going to do half points. I'd like to say a 9, but I think that might be a little bit of a push. But because of the goal and the overall performance, we'll go 8.5, 8 to 9, somewhere in there. But I hope you understand the point I'm making. I think he was a brilliant performance. Next to him in Romero, listen, that guy is going to go under the radar on the reviews, but he was excellent as well. He's a brilliant communicator. He has calmed himself down. He's relishing this new leadership responsibility, and he's absolutely thriving alongside a player. Everyone was asking the questions, is he really a Rolls Royce? Some people said no. Other people said yes, or he will be when he gets a partner that's capable. He's got that now, and Romero has been sensational. Not quite as strong a point as Van de Ven because he didn't score the goal, and you have to recognise that. So I'm going to give him, if we're giving Van de Ven a 9, I'll give him an 8. If we're giving Van de Ven an 8, I'm going to give, or an 8.5, I'll give Romero an 8. Just a slight knockdown, just because you have to kind of appreciate what Van de Ven did. Destiny Udogie ran his socks off yesterday. Incredible. He looked absolutely shattered in the second half, as you would do playing the inverted fullback role with 10 men. I mean, but look, he's just brilliant. For me, I think he's absolutely solid as a rock. There were times in the first half when he was getting out-muscled by the big number 11 for Luton, which is a surprise because it's the first time I've seen Udogie be out-strengthed a couple of times. And I think you can make the same assertion for Van de Ven, just a couple of times that 11 was getting in there and going shoulder to shoulder and was showing his weight and throwing it around. But for me, Udogie was a solid 7. Again, second half, the resilience, the doggedness to keep going despite being absolutely shattered against fresh legs for Luton and 11 men, and see the game out. There were errors. He did give the ball away with the ball at his feet a couple of times as well. But overall, the back four were brilliant to get the job done in the circumstances. So I'm going to give them a 7. Same goes for Pedro Porro. He's another one where you can sit there and criticise if you want to, because he's usually brilliant on the ball. Today, or yesterday rather, he was sloppy, gave the ball away. I think he was one who was responsible for the loose pass that led to Bissouma getting his first yellow, so he needs to take a little bit of the accountability for that. But defensively, he got back in and looked surprisingly against some really tall opposition. He actually won 75%, 3 of the 4 aerial threats. I think he made several clearances, 3 or 4 interceptions as well, and a couple of tackles. So, statistically, according to SofaScore, he was really had an incredible performance. I don't think it was incredible. I think the on-the-ball stuff was sloppy from him at times. I think he gave the ball away too many times. And again, some of the weighting of the passes was a little bit off from what I could see. Remember, all of this is watching it from the corner of a really hard to observe the game stand with all the posts in front of you and doing this all the time. Look, we'll move forward to Bissouma. Look, unfortunately, he had a rush of blood to the head. Idiotic. I don't think you can necessarily blame him too much for the first yellow, but it was a clear yellow, but he was put into that situation. The second one, though, right before half-time, just a really bad mistake, and it could have cost us, But look, he's been brilliant all season. As Ange said, he's been brilliant all season. Everyone's entitled to a mistake. It's what you do to recover. How do you pay it back? That matters, and we'll have to wait and see. He's going to miss the Fulham game, which is a real nightmare because Fulham's biggest strength is Palhinha, and I worry a little bit about how our midfield is going to handle Palhinha without Bissouma. We know what happened in the Carabao Cup. We were dominated in that area of the pitch. So we'll have to see. But he is getting a little bit too aggressive, I think, at times now, Bissouma. It's a little bit silly. He doesn't need to be quite as reckless as he is. And obviously the simulation was just a stupid mistake. So unfortunately, as much as I absolutely adore the guy, the best I can give him is a 3 or a 4 out of 10 because he only made 44 minutes of the game. Before that, I thought he was okay. Again, though, I didn't think he was great. I think some of the passing he was doing was sloppy. In the first 10-15 minutes, he was pulling the strings, but everything was brilliant in the first 10 or 15 minutes, apart from the finishing of people that we're going to talk about in a minute. But then after that, as Luton started to build into the game, even towards the end of the first half, he got a little bit kind of, I don't know if he was tired or rattled or what was going on, but I just didn't think he had a great game yesterday, even before the 2 yellow cards. So we'll give him a 3 and we'll move on. Pape Sarr I thought was spectacular, really stepped up yesterday, both with Basuma on the pitch and afterwards. You know, he carves up that pitch. It's incredible watching him run. He's like he's a marathon runner. I don't know if you've ever seen a marathon runner run in real time, but they run for 25 miles faster than I can run to the end of the street. You know, their legs are just so fluid and gallop so much pace and can do it for so much time. But he's doing it whilst kicking a football, you know, and I just think he's growing and growing as a player, and I think we absolutely have an absolute star. He still makes mistakes, but of course he does. Everyone does. But even people that are as young as him are going to make a higher frequency because they're just naive to some of the lessons of football that older, more experienced players can take advantage of. But when he does make a mistake, he makes sure he gets back and kind of and does his absolute utmost to get back and support and recover and you know, get it back for the team. He really is a player that I admire, and I feel so much more comfortable with him on the pitch than, say, the person who's vying for his spot. Ollie Skipp, I'll just spend 2 seconds talking about him. He came on the pitch to shore the game up in the second half, and he was absolutely awful. From what I could see, he was jogging around the pitch. He didn't look like he was really going in for anything. And I feel like I've been a little bit too lenient on Ollie Skipp in the past because maybe he's one of our own. But what I see these days, I just don't see him being the player that I thought he was going to be. And yeah, I don't feel that confident when I see him coming on the pitch, even to do the role of shoring up the game. So that's a shame. Let me know your thoughts on that. Moving forward, James Maddison. Look, I'll be entirely honest, guys. I'm gonna sort of carte blanche this sweeping statement here, but the front four in the first 45 minutes, the first half, in fact, most of the game yesterday, I thought were absolutely terrible. I really did. I thought Richarlison was absolutely awful. Like, he runs around like a headless chicken, working hard. He does do the hard work stuff. And again, like I say, the same with Kulusevski. If you're going to be really scrutinising him to try and get to the real value that these people bring, then you have to analyse what they do with the ball, without it, and outside of just whether or not they're putting the ball in the back of the net, which I know is the most important thing. And with Richarlison, I land on the part where I just don't see the value. I never have. Like, I know he's been playing well over the last couple of games, but yesterday I thought was absolutely abject from him. You know, missing 2 chances. The first one, he didn't know whether to lean in with his head or his foot. I know there was a pull on his shirt, but that was kind of, I don't think that really affected it. If you see it, I've watched that particular highlight back. The freeze frame looks terrible, but I don't think that they really did affect him. I think he just made the mistake. His confidence is poor. And the second one, he decides to put it he goes low, but he puts it in the centre of the goal. You know, he needs to try and find an angle, try and find a corner, and that goes in. And then we're comfortable. Instead, we're not. Same goes for Sonny. I'll be honest, worst performance from Sonny this season. From what I could see, I thought he was terrible. I know he's clearly carrying a really bad injury and he's clearly playing injured. And that is, you know, I respect the fact that he tried his best, but I really hope he's not going to play for career over the next, week or whatever, 10 days, because he needs a breather. And we've got players coming back now in Brian Hill, in Sessegnon, who might be an option up there. Not that I particularly want Sessegnon. In Brennan Johnson, we do have options coming back. And so if he is injured, then I don't want him to necessarily always take one for the team, because taking one for the team like he did yesterday resulted in the team being weaker for it. I'm sorry, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of bad comments for it, but I just thought Sonny was well off the pace. He looked like he was being bullied by stronger players all day yesterday. But I know it was needs must. Right? We didn't have many options, so it is what it is. Kulusevski, I think, again, like I say, does his usual predictable stuff. If that's what you focus on, if you want him to be a better player by going to the byline more, and I do, if that's all you're going to focus on, then you're going to land on he's just too predictable and he's a rubbish player, he doesn't offer enough. But I think he does offer far more. I think he offers far more in those circumstances, like in the second half, as I've already said, where he can be that outlet and can carve up the time, like just chalk up minute after minute with him keeping the ball. He's brilliant in that response, in that action, and that is something that we shouldn't overlook. And he had a really good shot that was just tipped around the post by a fantastic save. I don't think he played particularly badly. I thought he was overall, like I say, I'm going to land on the second half performance from him being really, really strong, and I'm going to give him a 7. I'm going to give Sonny a 6. I'm going to give Richarlison a 5, and Maddison I gave an 8, but it's really because of the assist and the way that he was so sharp and can get that job done. But I also thought he, in the first half, was very wasteful with his passing. I thought he was over-hitting balls into the channels, and there was just a lot of sloppiness. But in the second half, whilst he was there, he got the job done, got the goal, and that's the stuff that matters. It is what matters at the end of the day, isn't it? It's your output for those sorts of players. Are you getting the goal and assist contributions? And he is, and so you have to kind of give him the credit. For me, Højbjerg, then, I think is the last person I need to talk about briefly. He came on, I thought he did a really good job, to be honest, shoring up. Solid 7 from him. Wasn't asked to do much apart from protect, wind the clock down, and offer some security and solidarity in the second half. And I thought, he wasn't great. Obviously, like, Luton had their chances, and so we have to acknowledge that. He wasn't spectacular in all things, but when it came down to it, he was comfortable on the ball. He didn't let the side down. But we've got a really tough decision now what to do for Fulham, because I don't think that Højbjerg is going to have any luck against someone like Palhinha. But it's an interesting one. There you go, guys. They're my player rating. That's my overall review. Look, we got the 3 points. That is all that matters at the end of the day. We move on to the next week break now. I'm going to be still throwing out content for you lovely people. Let me know if you've got any topics you want us to cover. We can do some Y scouting. If you want to do that over the next 2 weeks, we can do some analysis of finance. We can do some analysis of the crypto thing that we're doing with socios. What would you like? Let me know in the comments. But I'll see you on the next one. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, bye-bye.